Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 41 of FPL BlackBox. I'm afraid I'm full of cold, so normally it's me carrying you, Mark. I'm afraid you're going to have to do a bit of work this time out.
I know, it's liberties you take. You don't sound that bad, actually. When you warned me earlier, I was expecting horrific, like 10:45 to Nottingham, that kind of thing. But no, you were okay. You don't sound too bad, honestly.
I got my box of tissues. I'm getting through them. I just feel a bit, I didn't get COVID from Fest, which is good, but I have picked up some bug, it seems.
Yeah, well, you didn't exactly take it easy, did you? Let's face it.
No, I didn't.
No.
And yeah, well, actually, before we start, I just want to say thanks to everyone for Fest. Fest was honestly, it was brilliant. I absolutely loved it, and all the messages, all the people coming up to Mark and I, with nice things to say about BlackBox, and all the people that bought me drinks, and Delia bought us biscuits, and
yeah, amazing.
Really felt the love. So thank you everyone who was there. Although it did end up with me getting on the wrong train and £100 taxi home. So thanks for that.
There you go. That was an expense you didn't see, did you? But you should have really anticipated something like that, really, shouldn't you? But it was overwhelming.
I maintain it wasn't my fault. The train turned up at the right time.
Thank you.
It just went the wrong way.
It was overwhelming, wasn't it, the whole evening? Because there was so many people there who watched BlackBox and enjoyed it and gave us feedback on the night, and it was just incredible. And not just people from Twitter as well. There's a lot of people there who came on their own, didn't have a Twitter account, and that was what was great as well. It was people beyond the kind of the circle on Twitter that we communicate with. So it was really good to just meet everybody.
It was exactly what you kind of thought it would be. I know people say why can't we just go to a pub? But it was 250 plus people in a venue that wouldn't have been able to happen in a pub. And I think one of my favourite bits was quite early on. I went into the main room and there was about 6 or 7 people sat on their own. So I went into the bar area and I grabbed a few people. I was like, right, some people sitting on their own. Let's go and mingle with them and make them feel, part of it. We're back into the room and they literally all joined up and we're just all chatting together. So within 5 minutes, all the people that were on their own were suddenly chatting, and that's what I liked so much about it. There was just such a good atmosphere there, and everyone was getting on. And
the deadline countdown was great as well.
It was. It's like New Year's.
Yeah, and James and Kelly did a great job. Yeah, I mean, that's the launch party. We'll see where it goes from here. Hopefully it grows. I think everyone was really positive about it. So hopefully we'll see many of you at the next one, because it was great to meet up with some of the people who listen to and watch what we do. Tonight it's a big one. Obviously the season has started. Woo. I mean, how are you feeling 1 week in, Az? I mean, we'll look at your team and the specifics in a minute, but it's good to get it underway, isn't it?
It is very good to get underway, and I've never known a week like it where just everyone's quite happy and everyone's sort of, the template just worked and everyone's got nearly 100 points and everyone's feeling quite positive. I mean, it's not going to stay like that. It's all going to go tits up pretty soon, I imagine. But for now, it's quite nice.
I was a grumpy template hater.
You are so grumpy. Yeah.
Well, it's like everyone's going, whoa, woo, it's a great game week. And I'm like, yeah, we've all got great scores. And it's like, it's just the fact that Bruno and Salah delivered like they did just really underlined something that I dislike about the game.
Just say that first bit again.
What, Bruno? Yeah, we'll get on to Bruno in a minute. We'll get on to him. He's the poster boy of this episode. And yes, I got him, and yes, I backed down, and yes, it was the right call. But it was kind of depressing that, for me personally, someone who doesn't like, I think the template is a weakness in the game. And for it to be week one, bosh, straight in with the biggest, most, obviously all the heavy hitters delivered. Some of the players that we picked out delivered, Ben Rama and so on, Jota. So there were big scores, but it isn't necessarily a great thing because everyone in the community did really well. But we want some different players scoring points, not players that we always anticipate. We want it to be challenging, don't we, as well? But, of course, 3 figures on the ball for a lot of people. You got narked, didn't you? When Andy went on Twitter and said, oh, of course, like everybody else, I've got 3 figures, you were quickly onto that, weren't you?
I was, yeah. Well, I got a paltry 95, so it was nowhere near the heady heights of 100.
No,
I agree with you. It is somewhat boring, but I'm just looking at it as a nice base.
Yeah,
right. It's the first season I think I've ever had where I've got a nice base to build on, and getting off the template players at the right time is going to be crucial. We're going to see some fixture swings in Game Week 4 and Game Week 7. It's not going to stay boring like this forever. So I'm looking at it positively.
I'm not saying it's boring. It's just, if it's going to be another season of just get Salah and Bruno and Son or one of the others and that's it, and then it's just shuffle some 6 million and 4.5 defenders, that's going to be a rubbish season. So I don't think it will be that, though, because it's all going to turn on its head when Lukaku and Kane sort themselves out, and I think more players are going to come forward, and then we'll have decisions to make. So Yeah. Tonight, though, we're going to look at our game weeks, obviously. We're going to look specifically at some of the data from Game Week 1. I mean, how much can you glean from Game Week 1 data? But we'll have a look. We'll dip into it and see what our thoughts are. We're going to look at our watch list. We're going to bring that feature back and just look at some of the players that are on our minds going forward. And then really the deep dive is going to be into Salah and a certain Bruno for the Game Week 2 captaincy. I've got a lot of data on that. We're going to rinse that thoroughly. And I think you're on Bruno, right?
Yeah, I was going to say we're on different captains.
All right, we'll see if we can't change your mind. Yeah. We've got the predictions and also news of an international break disruption possibly coming our way in Game Weeks 4 and 5 and then later in 7 and 8. So more on that in a bit. But it's Pig, right? We haven't done Pig for a while. It's about time.
Pig.
It's about time we let Mr. Pig look back at Game Week 1 for us. And here he is.
Over 100 drafts, 1,000 I created. So happy when the game updated. Pretty soon that feeling faded. When I saw that shot, Duncan White conceded. Whereas Sammy got some succeeded. But it was that pen merchant's blank team nobody needed. And no, yeah, it's only game week 1. It's not as if the season's done. That's where you'll be told while you cry yourself to sleep. It might be time to reassess and take it for fair and dance, 'cause I know you don't wanna cry yourself to sleep.
Brilliant stuff from @pig_FPL. FPL Pig, of course. What do you think, Az?
I think that was aimed almost solely at you had you gone without Fernandez.
Well, I tell you what, I was at the wedding. Famously, I didn't get to use Andy Mack's house because we couldn't go on the Saturdays. We ended up on the Friday. We ended up driving down on Saturday morning. So I had to leave Fest as sober as I could. I got home about 1:40, got up at 10 to 8 and drove the next day for a couple of hours. It was all right, though. I wasn't hungover at all, which was good. But at the wedding, when the goals started going in for Bruno, I mean, I actually felt sick because I was thinking about how I would have felt if I hadn't have got Bruno. Do you know what I mean? I could put myself in that situation. I'm like, God, if I was here without Bruno and a hat-trick went in, it would have been.
Luckily, you're all fart, no poo.
Yeah, luckily, I mean, all the other options kind of fell away, and it meant that I had to go Bruno. I didn't have much choice, I didn't think. I mean, it was to build a case against him is difficult enough. You've got to have some really strong options available that convince you. And in the end, I didn't. But having said that, right, if you went Son instead of Bruno, and the extra money you went Ings instead of Tony, or Wilson instead of Tony, you only missed out by a few points because not many in our circle captained him, right? Most went with Salah. And the other thing is, I mean, if you didn't have Bruno and you did miss out badly, you've got to say it's unlucky. I mean, there's some facts here I'm going to roll out about Bruno in the past. Yeah. And when you look at that, it's incredible. Like, for him to get a hat-trick day one, I mean, that's his biggest. 20 points is his biggest ever FPL score, first of all. He's got 19 before, never 20. It's his first hat-trick then. In 51 appearances, he's only scored more than one goal in a single game on 3 occasions before that, right? So he's only ever got 3 braces in 51 appearances. And he last scored more than one goal in a Premier League game 24 appearances ago, right? Before that hat-trick. So let that sink in. Like, he hadn't got a brace. Well, the last brace was against Leeds in Game Week 12 last season. And he only scored 1 goal from open play in his last 13 before. Yeah.
I think he just had a point to prove. Like, in front of the home fans, he was just like, I'm going to show him, because, I mean, the Euros was so disappointing for him. End of last season must have been pretty disappointing. And I just think there's a good vibe around United at the moment, and he just wants to maintain that he's the main guy.
Yeah, and what was interesting as well, the role that him and Greenwood kind of played. I mean, Greenwood was hardly in the box. We're going to see later. He got his goal, but he was kind of alternating with Bruno, letting Bruno run ahead of him a lot. So that was quite interesting the way. I mean, obviously, it was a very much a carbon copy of the game last season when McTominay got the goals, right? Bruno just switched in for McTominay and did the same kind of thing, just ran.
Well, they're having so much joy through the middle because Leeds were giving up so many chances. They were really, really poor defensively and through the middle. And yeah, I think they just couldn't handle with Greenwood and Pogba particularly and Fernandes.
Pogba was immense.
They were just all three of them were just And then you're adding Sancho to that as well. He looked good when he came on.
Yeah.
Again, picking up the ball in central areas as well. It was clearly a tactic they had against them. It worked brilliantly.
Yeah, and I just think that it's funny, isn't it? Because when we look at things like, last season the result was this, or over the last 4 games against this opponent they've done this. A lot of times you go, that doesn't matter. It's a totally new game now. But actually, this was just the same as last season again. The same tactics for United work, and the same flaws in Leeds gameplay were there again. And it's like, it is strange, isn't it? How you think surely they would have approached this thinking, well, we're not going to get caught out like this again. But no Phillips, I guess, didn't help, right?
Well, exactly. They haven't improved, and they had one of the best players out, and United have strengthened. So it's only going to be one result when you've already got battered by them, I guess.
Absolutely. I just want to say I've got the comments down in front of me, and Vader is Dead is in the chat room. If you remember, Vader is Dead was in the backstage Q&A, and he said, "What about Marcus Alonso?" And I quickly dismissed it. And he's just saying here, he's just given us £4.49. Thanks very much, Vader. He said, in order for me to notice that, he said, thank goodness I didn't listen to you about Alonso. No, thank goodness you shouldn't. And it is a lesson learned, right? I think Alonso was there for me, and a few people got on him. Do you know who had him? 1 week.
A big name had him.
Go on.
Granville.
Did he?
Yeah.
Right.
He showed me his team before Fest, and I was like, Alonso? He was like, yeah, just fancy game week 1.
I normally do it, right? If there's a window to go Alonso, even short term, I normally do it. And I spoke about the opportunities in game week 1 and why I went Torres and Mahrez, Benrahma and so on. And really, I should have looked at Alonso at 5.5 as well. I don't know how I missed that, because I normally would. Maybe I just felt it was one risk too far, but well played.
Well, I mean, at least with Benrahma, you had the potential for more games if he played well. Like Alonso he's going to annoy you every week if you keep him. I think you have to get rid of him surely straight away.
It's booking in transfers, isn't it? I already have that with the City pair. Anyway, let's look at your game week in a bit of detail. 95 points then, Mr. Az. Do you want to talk us through the team for those listening on the podcast?
Yep, I will do. I'm just waiting for my stream to refresh. I'm a little bit behind for some reason today.
You're laggy. It's the cold, right? It's affecting your internet connection.
Sanchez in goal with 2 points. I immediately regret having him. And I've been on streams all week, and I still maintain that it was definite foul on Mopé and it shouldn't have stood. But at the same time, Burnley could have gone into that 4-0 up at half time because Brighton were absolutely terrible, but changed things around. I think he went back to a back 3 with wing backs again, a bit more familiar, and sorted things out. So yeah, I don't know about Sanchez. I'm just not convinced we're going to be that good defensively, or that he's going to make loads of saves. And so I'm just thinking I should have maybe gone with Raya, who I know got 8, but at least he's going to make saves, and we've talked about him on the pod before. So I'm thinking he might be a bit of a mistake. Elsewhere, Trent, Soufal, Tsimikas. How Soufal didn't get an assist, I have no idea.
Antonio hit the bar, didn't he, from 6 yards out?
Unbelievable. I mean, yeah, and that would have been a nice little, because I've basically it's Soufal v Shaw for me every week. So Shaw, conceding to an Eiling outside the box screamer was nice, and if Soufal got the assist, it would have been better. Salah captain, Fernandes, Grealish played all right, but couldn't really get anything. I mean, just did what he always does, gets loads of fouls, and makes things happen. I'm quietly confident keeping him for Norwich though. And Barnes, I think, thought was unlucky to not get anything in that game too. And then Ings, Antonio, and Tony. So yeah, I mean, pretty template apart from Grealish and Barnes and no Shaw, but pretty happy going forward.
I don't know if Barnes was unlucky. He had one shot. He
didn't
create a single chance.
Okay. Unlucky.
Leicester were poor, I thought.
Unlucky, maybe not the right word. He should have done better. He had a couple of chances where he could have squared it for better balls into Vardy, and he made the wrong decision. And the shot he had, I thought, was decent. So I think he was unlucky not to get anything, but yeah, he's got to improve. And a sub that's 70 minutes.
I mean, to be fair, Leicester didn't play well. I mean, I looked at the data before we came on, and Leicester were right down there in terms of XGI, and it
Wolves
wasn't.
played well, better than I
Wolves
thought they
played well, yeah, exactly. They weren't the whipping boys you anticipated, were they? And Ings, you were fortunate with Ings getting that last minute penalty. I mean, he was poor as well. I think he only had one shot, and that was the penalty.
I honestly thought the match had ended. I honestly thought I was watching. I was like, oh, okay, blank for Ings, and then it just flashes up 90+7 Danny Ings. I was like, what? Well, that match ended about 10 minutes ago.
Very fortunate with that, I think.
I mean,
it was a penalty, and we didn't. I don't think we detected the. I think I was wrong. I was cynical about the officials and thought that they'd get it all wrong. It'd be all muddled because they weren't clear on what they were doing and how they were interpreting the new threshold on contact. But actually, for that, it was superb. I think game week 1. I think the football was just the fact that players could challenge each other without pulling back and feeling that the whistle was going to blow. It was more free flowing, and so we didn't see any dodgy decisions apart from I think maybe the Tarkowski push on Maupay.
Maybe. What more have you got to do to foul
He was
someone?
two-handed, wasn't it?
Literally two-handed, shove him over in the box.
Yeah, he was blocking him, but
I have to say though, it was we've been. I mean, I doubt they care that we've been critical about the refereeing standard in the Premier League, but we have been, and I thought it was excellent. And I think the biggest one was just Bruno's goal. Like they looked at it, and last season they would have magnified it, scrutinised it, 3 minutes, blah blah blah. They looked at it and went, yeah, we don't really know. We'll just give them the goal.
Yeah, it would have been cruel to write that. I mean, when you score a goal like that, you don't want the forensics to rule it out.
That's ridiculous. It's completely.
It's great. It's great. It's great. We're going to see that. Hopefully, we're going to get more goals as a result of that, right? But certainly, the football as a spectacle is better, right? You're not always anticipating every 30 seconds the whistle to blow, which is what we had a lot last season. Let's talk about Grealish a little bit. Because I watched that game and I was very interested in the role that he played. He didn't play out on the left, wide left, as you anticipated. It was Sterling out there.
Yep.
But he more or less was out there with Sterling. What's interesting there as well is I'm looking at the team this week and trying to anticipate what Pep's going to do. And thinking, well, could Walker come in and Cancelo go over to the left-hand side? But I don't know how Cancelo would work with Grealish in front of him because they'd both be doing the same thing. Cancelo likes to push into the midfield and push right up with the left winger. That's exactly what Grealish was doing, wasn't he? He was more or less on the left-hand side for most of it. So I don't know if Cancelo can slot on the left anymore. I think he'd have to play right all the time. So that'd be interesting to see. But I mean, generally Grealish, I still think he could be the assister rather than direct returns from what I saw.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, he's that kind of deeper lying role meant that when he was moving to the box, he was quickly kind of closed down, and then he was happy to kind of give it off to the players. But I mean, he had a couple of moments where he looked quite dangerous when he was mostly from when he was coming in off the left and sort of getting into the penalty area, making some passes. I've had a decent shot. I thought he was going to score that. I was pretty excited, but he didn't. I mean, it's early days for him. I mean, he's the big gamble with my team. I think, when you've got a player like that moving to a new system, and especially one like Pep's, which is so. You've got to be so on your game and you've got to know exactly what you're doing and everyone around you and stuff. And it's very early days for him. I saw enough not to be panicked, but I want to see more from him against Norwich. Yeah,
no, absolutely. You've got to keep him. He'll start against Norwich and who knows what you get. All right, let's have a quick look at my team. 100 points, so only 5 more. So it's Sanchez, Trent, Tsimikas, Shaw. And then we get into the bigger risks. I had Torres, Fernandes, Mahrez, Salah, Benrahma, who came in for me, Tony and Antonio. So the West Ham duo did the business for me at Newcastle.
I have to say, fair play on Benrahma.
Yeah, well, we saw it pre-season. Yeah, and I think what was interesting as well, Antonio was coming deep quite a lot, or drifting out to the left, I think it was. And Benrahma was filling in central quite a lot of what we saw Lingard doing in bits and pieces last season. So, I mean, he was excellent, Benrahma.
He was pretty much playing as a 10, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He wasn't really wide, was he? So I think it was Bowen out on the right-hand side and Benrahma was meant to be lying out on the left, but it wasn't the case. And that meant, I did think Creswell got forward a lot more than Soufal, and I think Creswell did look that 0.5 better, I think, on the day, I've got to say. So
I knew he would. I think I said, if I was going for a 5-5 defender, I would have picked him. And then he scored. That's why we keep saying it. That's why these prices give you a decision, because I think we know that Creswell is worth the 5.5, but it's just what you can do with that 0.5.
Yeah.
But But Sufal was unlucky. He was unlucky to come away from that.
Yeah, he was. And I think it's just interesting that with Ben Rama tucking in, it gives Creswell the license to get forward when they play a 4. Right, okay, let's get on to the subject of Torres and Mahrez.
Just before you do, just a shout out to the apprentices.
I'm going to look at their teams at the end.
Oh, are we? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Spoilers.
It's all going to come at the end. Torres and Mahrez didn't work out for me in week 1. I was gambling on one of them returning to book their place in the team against Norwich, and now I'm faced with this game week 2 dilemma. But I don't think it is a dilemma. I've got to keep them and hope I get a start from one or both, right? But City were poor, weren't they?
Yeah, sorry, Mahrez disappointed, did he? It's,
yeah, I mean, I could have anticipated that. We know in one of these next 3 or 4 games he's going to get a big score, and it's just whether or not I can.
It will be Arsenal when everyone's sold him. That's I'm sure it will be. I'm sure benched against Norwich and brace against Arsenal. That's my prediction.
I don't think he will be. I think Mahrez is the one who's going to play. I think probably Torres is most likely to make way. Interestingly, it broke as we came online tonight. Gundogan appears to be back in training and training as normal. So if that is the case, then KDB could then take the false 9 and Torres will drop out. And then Mahrez, or Torres could move out to the left and Mahrez dropped to the right. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to get, but we'll talk about that at the end anyway. Tony, both got Tony. What did you think? I mean, we were in a haze of alcohol at the time, but what did you make of him?
Well, having seen the highlights, I thought he was brilliant. It was just a proper. He just did a proper job, didn't he? On the Arsenal defence, they just said to him, "Bully him as much as you can. Don't worry too much about scoring. Just get the ball, lay it off to your teammates, and make their lives living hell." And that's exactly what he did. Man of the match performance. I don't think they'll use him like that in many other games. I just think they saw a weakness in Arsenal's kind of weak centre back pairing. And I thought he was absolutely brilliant. No alarm bells with him at all. I think he's gonna adapt quickly and be a great option. Really happy.
Yeah, he actually looked better on the ball and off the ball than I anticipated. Actually, he looked like he could settle this level. There was no issues there. He's not just a poacher, right? He has got a good touch. His distribution's good. His awareness, his movement, we know about, right? So I've no fears either. Palace next, we've got to hold him and
I gave him a disservice by I mean I meant it as a compliment, saying he's a bit like Glenn Murray, the way he goes into positions, but it was just such a good all round performance. Like if you're Brentford and you've got him leading the line like that, I mean there's already been comparisons between him and Lukaku and how Tuchel's going to use Lukaku as a bit of a battering ram in some games where he's just going to bully defenders. And having that presence up front is going to be vital for Brentford.
And
really,
Mbeumo
really
looked good, didn't he? Looked lively. He's a player that was on my watch list and still is. And I was impressed. He should have scored, really. He had a good opportunity. The second one was probably the better one, but he hit the post, didn't he, as well? Generally looks like he could be a 5-5 bargain. It could be very important when Lukaku and Kane come into our thinking.
I see him as your boy. I see him as, even though you never actually went for him, I still see him as your player.
Well, I haven't got claim to him. You can have him as well. It's fine.
Nah, I don't want him. He's yours.
Fair enough. So interestingly, before I went Bruno, I did have an alternative team, which I was quite close in going with. And I think we've been talking about it on here quite a bit about Ragabolly's been putting this tool together called the Turning Point tool. And what that enables me to do is to run 2 teams into game week 1. Don't worry, only one in the game. The other one exists outside the game, but gets points. I'm not cheating. Exactly. So I just want to show you what my other team would have been if I had not got Bruno, because it's quite. This is why I started feeling nauseous at the wedding. This is what I would have had. Look at what you would have had. 70 points. So this was the other team that I put together, which was much more risky, much more full of differentials. Sanchez, Shaw, Alexander-Arnold, Amity was my back 3. So Amity would have got me a clean sheet. Ben Rama still in there. Mahrez, Salah, Mane captain, and Bremo. So Bremo was in there with the 3 points. Up front, I was going to go Bamford over Ings with Antonio. So this team, with Veltman, Ayling and Obafemi on the bench, would have got me 70 points and put me 3.3 million instead of 100 points and 377k. So I was that close to having a disastrous start. I mean, disastrous. I mean, 70's not terrible, I guess.
Mane captain would have been an absolute killer.
Yeah.
Because if you captained Salah in that team, you would have got 85 or something, and that would have been okay. But yeah, I mean, it's not Yeah, it's recoverable, but it's not ideal, is it?
No, I mean, so I'm gonna keep. I mean, what this turning point tool allows me to do is keep this team running for a few weeks to see, because you never know. This team might have a brilliant game week too. I mean, Manny could get a hat trick against Burnley, and suddenly, so I'm gonna maintain this team for a few weeks just to see, out of curiosity, how I would have done had I gone with that game week 1 lineup, because you don't want to give up with it on 1 week. But the turning point tool is going to be really interesting because. I can do something this week where I can create another branch where I won't captain Salah, I'll captain Bruno, and maybe I will go Torres to Greenwood, which is probably not a transfer I'm going to do, but I'll do it on this branch to see, again, how I do. So Ragabolly and I have got a few ideas how to use this tool going forward. It's going to be an interesting one that people can do and play with. So
knowing you, Mark, and how obsessional you are with all this, you are gonna. I can just imagine you with like all these printouts of different paths that you could have taken and trodden. Like, I've done this.
Here's the one. This is the one that would have won it if I'd have just done this in game week 4, and I'm going to be maintaining like 671 teams by the end. Yeah.
You're like in films, you're just on a rocking chair in the middle of the room. There's just like diagrams all around the room. Look at you. Your wife comes in like, Mark, please, you've been in there for 48 hours.
And I'll be like,
you're
this one. If I'd have picked this one. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not a good thing because it is going to reveal to you your mistakes or the decisions you would have made. But that's the idea of it, right? It's going to be like, oh, right, okay. So why didn't I go with that? What did convince me? So it's going to be really interesting. Right. Let's touch on something that's just been a talking point in many pods this week and on Twitter as well. I just want to show you Ben Krellin's high-level planning, first of all, just to highlight the fact that between game week 3 and 4, we're going to have an international break, and between game weeks 7 and 8, we're going to have an international break as well. And they are obviously windows where we would normally consider our wild card, and we certainly are. I'm sure we're going to do that, either 3 and 4 or certainly 7 and 8 because of the Chelsea swing. But what is clouding the issue a little bit, and which has emerged this week, is a rule change with FIFA in terms of players returning from international matches, and the isolation rules are after they return, which is kind of casting a real doubt over, first of all, some players who are going to go away for the South American qualifiers. And just to underline that, Argentina and Brazil play 3 matches over the international break, the first one between 3 and 4. And the last of those matches ends at 1:30 a.m. on September the 10th. And the game week starts on September the 11th, right? Which is just crazy, right? So even without the isolation problem, we'd have an issue here with players returning with air miles and fatigue. But when you throw in the fact that the players who play or go to those countries could therefore be forced to isolate, and under the current rules they would be, we've got an issue, haven't we? And what we're showing here are the players that are likely to be affected or could be affected by this. What's your thoughts on this, Az?
Well, my thoughts are there's some big names here. It's not just like a couple of players. It's players that can affect us all over the place. I mean, look at Villa, Martinez and Buendia. You've got players like Antonio. Liverpool, Fabinho, Salah. Like it has an impact on our own FPL teams in terms of the players we've got, but also on who our players are playing. Because if you're playing a team against Liverpool, you've got double Liverpool defence, and they haven't got Fabinho. They're a weaker defensive outfit. So I think we've got to pay attention to this, and I think we've got to assume that a lot of these players, even if they do get past the restrictions, won't really be quite with it for the matches.
We should say that the rules are getting assessed again, I think, on the 25th of August, so another week's time, the rules might get changed again. You mentioned Salah there. Yeah, it's not just the South American internationals, it's also some of the African and Asian players as well who go away and return from locations which are on the red list and therefore may have to isolate, right? I think the Salah situation could be better because of the dates of the matches, and he might make it back. But it's unknown, right? We've got this doubt now over it. And if you want more information, by the way, on the players affected, I recommend posting the Carps thread. That is at Matt Kearney. That's KEARNEY 92 at Matt Kearney 92. He's done a document there which lists all the players for the nations affected. And Scout have done an article today as well. So pop over to Scout or Matt's thread for more info on that.
I wonder how many injuries we'll see leading up to international break.
This is it, isn't it? This is what we've got to anticipate as well. There'll be yellow flags going on, you'd have thought, before the international breaks, so that to stop the players going over there, right? There'll be arrangements, there'll be phone calls going on now and emails going on to prepare for this. The clubs are going to be aware of it and they won't want their key players hampered by this, so they'll do everything they can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I genuinely think, when you're making transfers, people are going to be bringing in like Richarlison off the back of this, like player, Buendia might be someone who people are looking at if he does well. I mean, Antonio is already going up in price. There is definitely that little bit that would stop me from maybe moving on these.
Well, I was going Rafinha. In my game week 3 transfers, we're going to be Rafinha and Son.
Yeah. Exactly.
And obviously Rafinha's on this list for Brazil. He's been called up to the squad, I think, for the first time. I don't think he'll play 3 matches, but if he's going to come back from a location which forces him to isolate, he might miss game week 4, might miss game week 5 even. So, yeah, we've got to go for. We can wait until next week when the rules are revised again, but it's something to be aware of and keep an eye on. Right, let's look at some data. Let's look at some defenders first of all. So what I've done here, I've looked at all the positions other than goalkeeper and sorted some data by expected goal involvement non-penalty, one of our favourite little stats. That is expected assists plus expected goals non-penalty, and looked at the values returned by defenders, midfielders and forwards. And we've got here some defenders to highlight. And it really just showed how Soufal was perhaps unfortunate because 0.59 expected goal involvement against Newcastle. Very, very high. Creswell further down the list on 0.16, even though he came away with a goal. So I guess you can count yourself unfortunate there, right?
Well, yeah, it was, Antonio should have scored it. And it was, Antonio had a weird game because, he missed a penalty, missed the absolute sitter, and still came away with double digits. He could have got 20 points.
He could have gone massive, couldn't he? He could have gone absolutely crazy. Massive. Well, Creswell down there with 4 crosses from open play, but only 1 chance created, and Soufal had the 2. The player that I've highlighted here as well is Tierney. Now, when I was watching the Brentford Arsenal game at Fest, Tierney was the standout, right? And the numbers do back this up. So 11 crosses from open play, 2 shots in the box, 3 shots overall, 5 successful crosses from those open play balls in, and 6 chances created overall. XGI non-penalty of 0.46. Did you see any click of Tierney? He was impressive, wasn't he?
So impressive. 6 chances created in one game is crazy, especially in a game where you lose to 2-0. He was absolutely amazing. Yeah, he really was. Everything good that Arsenal did came from Tierney. So I'm looking at him in after the next 2 matches and thinking they've got a really good run of games. If I can find 0.5 and upgrade Wyatt to Tierney, I'm going to do it. And
this underlines his influence. It's an article on theanalyst.com today, and they've kindly allowed us to use one of their graphics. This shows that Tierney created 14 shot-ending sequences, basically, and that is actions that ended in a shot, either from a pass, his own shot, or from a dribble within a move that led to a shot. That is the highest number of any player in the game week, right? So, he was associated with more shot-ending moves than any other player. And you could believe it when you saw it. Him and Smith Rowe were the only really signs of any hope for Arsenal. Those 2 really did stand out. But Tierney at 5 million is a defender that we've got to consider because Arsenal's fixtures do improve. It's just, are teams going to find the weaknesses, like Brentford did? They've got to get Gabriel back in defence. I think Ben White is never going to be the best in the air, and he got exposed. But I think other teams, Lukaku turns up with Chelsea next. They're going to sit right on Ben White and hit long balls. And that's the trouble with Arsenal. They've always had a weakness in defence, and teams haven't had trouble finding it, right?
Yeah. Just to put in context, last season, De Bruyne created 80 chances. So this is De Bruyne.
Yeah.
And Tierney created 6 in one match.
Yeah.
So, 6 times 38, I'm not even going to bother working that out, but it would dwarf anything that De Bruyne did. He's not going to do that every match, but still, it's a hell of a performance that you've got to kind of take note of. Arsenal can't get any worse.
No.
They physically can't get any worse than that, but, it was weird, isn't it? The build-up to it, with Aubameyang and Lacazette both being out. The team they put out was shocking, really. It was, far cry from where they were sort of 10 years ago, or, even under Wenger in the later years. It was, that team would finish just above the relegation zone. It was genuinely a really, really poor side.
Balogun and Martinelli. I didn't expect to see Martinelli yet because I don't think he's had much of a pre-season at all.
He looked like he hadn't had any pre-season. No. He's a good player, loads of talent there, but had no influence on the game whatsoever.
Okay, further down the list, Alexander-Arnold. We know what we get with him. He was present against Tsimikas, though, was a factor, wasn't he? I haven't highlighted it here, but 5 crosses from open play, which has matched Alexander-Arnold's output. I was impressed with him. He took set pieces as well. He took corners in Robertson. I was very glad that I opted for SuperChats over Jota, even though Jota came in with the 1 extra point. I think with Firmino coming off the bench after an hour, and Jota didn't look too pleased about that, I think SuperChats will be good for another game or two, maybe. Although Robertson is back in training, right? So we're probably going to get one more from him, aren't we? But I mean, that's okay. Burnley at home, we'd expect something from that, right?
If we can get one game and a price rise and another clean sheet, like, I think it's perfect, literally perfect. I mean, my biggest worry with going with him was that I'd want Jota and I wouldn't be able to move for him. And all that game against Norwich confirmed was how much I don't want him, because he was absolutely brilliant and still got subbed at 60 minutes, like literally just on 60 minutes as well. So that,
and he
people were
dawdled
lucky
off,
to get those
didn't
2
he?
points.
Dawdled off to get the extra point.
Yeah, all for his owners. But Firmino's looking decent and in good form at the moment. Scoring in pre-season, scoring in that game, and I still think Firmino is first choice. I still don't know what Jota's place is in the side, and I've said it for since the beginning of last season. I still don't know. Is he going to play all 4 at once? I'm just not sure he will.
I don't see
he will.
Not yet. Not until that Van Dijk defence is back fully up to speed. Van Dijk's not fully fit yet. He's match fit anyway, right? So I think we've got to see them settle, get a run of clean sheets, and then perhaps he'll be bold enough to play the 4. I think he will on occasions, but yeah, I think... I mean, I backed Jota over Greenwood, and already I've changed my mind on that. I was wrong on that. I'm glad I didn't follow through with either of those players. I mean,
absolutely.
Greenwood is the one at the moment, but his doubts over his start won't start yet. But we'll talk about him in a minute. Let's look at midfielders, in fact.
Sorry for everyone watching me blow my nose, by the way.
It is quite chronic. I played down your cold at the start, but actually I'll take it all back, as it is quite severe, isn't it? Will he make it? Will he make it through the 2-hour slog that is BlackBox? We'll see. I'm going to test.
I'm just leaking. I'm just literally my nose is just
streaming.
Leaking.
Yeah, okay. Not even the podcast viewers want to hear about this, do they? Right, okay. This is the midfielders. So I've highlighted some players here that caught my eye. Traore, first of all. I mean, when you get given the Wolves job as a manager, surely your main task, if you're going to win football matches, as well as getting Jimenez back up to speed, is to get the most out of Traore. Because what you got there is a world beater, potentially, if you can find a way of harnessing his ridiculous strength and pace. All right, his end product's not always there, and it wasn't there at Leicester. But my word, he really did stand out, didn't he? He was almost unstoppable. I mean, do you see any potential in him over the season for us?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, Nuno did it for a bit, didn't he? He, not last season, the season before, there was like a window of about 7 or 8 games where Traore was not only unplayable, but was also delivering great crosses. He was, so dangerous in the box. He was finishing quite nicely. And then it all disappeared. He went back to the old Traore. But yeah, very, very encouraging signs for him, but no returns.
11 touches in the box, 6 shots, which is the most amongst midfielders, I believe, and 0.89 XGI non-penalty on the day. He really should have scored at least one. He's one to monitor because Wolves' fixtures do pick up, right? They do have a really good run or a really solid run where we may look at Jimenez, but at 6 million, Traore could be an option as well, particularly when we're trying to save money in midfield for maybe Lukaku or Kane. Further down, I mean, Torres is highlighted there, but he did have a good game, didn't he? He was doing plenty off the ball, showing willing. He did have one opportunity which perhaps he could have done better with. Do you think now, we'll look at my team later, he is going to be in it? Do you think Jesus starts? Do you think KDB up front? What's your thoughts?
I thought he was arguably City's best player on the pitch, which isn't saying a lot, but I thought he did well. Will he keep his place? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to have to sit on the fence.
Isn't it? 50-50.
It's 50-50, yeah. I mean, Jesus isn't exactly didn't cover himself in glory when he came on, but there's so many options that could play there, and it's now been 2 games he's played and hasn't scored or registered anything. So you've got the pressure when you play up front for City to deliver, and he hasn't done it, even though he's played quite well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he came off the bench.
No, we'll see. I mean, in a way, it might work in my favour, the fact there's a huge doubt over his start, because no one's going to go to him. It's only managers like me who have him, who will hold him, right? So if he does come in, he will stay a differential, there's no doubt. And he might even get something off the bench or play on the right-hand side for Mahrez. Smith Rowe, highlighted here, 0.49. He had 4 touches in the box. And touches in the box is key, I think, for showing up on this list and on the day. Grealish had 8. Further down the list, though, the player I want to talk about is Ismail Assar. who was just incredible, wasn't he?
I've been talking about it all week. I mean, like I keep making the same joke over and again that some people might not have heard it, but
Go on,
I genuinely
roll it
think he's ended Target's career. I just don't think
That's
Target's
not a
ever going
joke.
to play
That's
again.
just a cruel jibe at a reliable, consistent left back. But never mind. Go on. There you go.
But it's pretty accurate though, isn't it? I mean, you've got to have a hell of a personality to come back from that. I mean, he was just time and time again rinsed by Sarr. I've never seen anything like it. I can't remember someone. I mean, Hazard, I guess, used to do that to some players, and we see it every now and then. But like a Watford player or like a newly promoted side having a player like Sarr in the team is just, and I just think he's just going to get better. He's just going to get better and better and better as he tests himself against better opponents. You know, Watford get stronger. I wrote Watford out completely, but I think with Sarr they've got a real chance of staying up.
I mean, hands up, I didn't know enough about Watford to commit to them. I mean, I knew of Sarr, of course, but I did worry about whether Watford had goal power in them, and they turned out they did against Villa, 3 goals, right? And Sarr, 10 touches in the box, 3 shots, 4 chances created, all round, right? All round fantastic. And I had a quick look at the data from that game compared to his average data when he was in the Premier League before. And what I'm showing here, first of all, is Sarr's touch map in that game. And you've only got to look at that once to see what we're talking about. Look where most of his touches were in the box, really in the danger zone where it could hurt Villa. So compared to his averages in 2019-20, when he had a decent first season in the Premier League, 10 touches in the box compared to an average of 3.9 when he was last in the Premier League, 3 shots compared to 1.6, shots in the box 2 compared to 1.2, shots on target 2 compared to 0.5. His XG was lower. Chances created 4 on the day compared to 0.9. Massive jumps, right, from what we saw on average from him in the Premier League last time. He's obviously had that extra season in the Championship. 13 goals. He did look different, didn't he? He looked stronger, more powerful, more confident. End product looked better. All round, a player we've got to take notice of, right?
Yeah, I mean, Aston Villa looked like they'd never played together before, which definitely helped.
I did warn you on that.
They looked like a team who's bought a load of players and hadn't had time to gel. When I saw the lineup though, and I saw like Ashley Young in the side and people like that, I was like, oh, this is going to be. And then they concede straight away. I mean, yeah. I mean, he's not going to be playing target every week. That's one.
Well, who's the left back for
against him.
Brighton? It's going to be Solly March, isn't it?
Yeah, Solly March is great. Have him in his pocket. At least he's a bit quicker than Target appears to be. I thought. I don't know if Target is slow or if Sarr is just so rapid that. Yeah,
it's a bit of both.
March will deal with him, but at least we've got cover as well when we go back to the back three. You know, he was rinsing Target and then just making his way into the box, and no one was there to challenge him. He had all the time in the world. Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll give him a better game than Villa did, for sure.
We'll see. Another player there just above Sarr in our table, Mason Greenwood, right? A lot of talk about him this week. I think he is the player I fear most going into Gameweek 2. He's got that fixture at Southampton, which looks tailor-made for goals. We'll look at our predictions later. I didn't expect to see him in the central striker role for United. I guess the question is, can he stay there? I mean, what's your thoughts on Greenwood?
Didn't you? I think I was expecting him to start centre forward. I thought Cavani wasn't back, was he? So it was him or Martial, really. And Martial, I think, isn't going to be a huge factor. Yeah, I thought he was superb. I mentioned earlier that his awareness to pick up on loose balls from Leeds, and and as you said, it wasn't just attacking; it was all the stuff he did in the middle of the park. I mean, Solskjaer will be so pleased with the way he played because he was absolutely vital in that win, unlocking other players, letting Fernandes bomb forward, letting Pogba into the game. He was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I'm very worried about him, and I think the fears are where's his place long term, because if Pogba could start on the left, Sancho could go right, and then Cavani could play up front, then he misses out. But he's not going to be benched after that performance. No.
I mean, in the short term, it's his shirt to lose. I think I've said this on Twitter. The only thing I would draw, I mean, people have said, we talk about Greenwood being an elite finisher, right? So I looked at some data, and this really surprised me because I wanted to see how Cavani and Greenwood compared last season. Because the point I'm raising is once Cavani is fit, it's only going to take him to come off the bench and score an important goal, and suddenly the doubt is there, right? Because Cavani's a class act. But I did think, Greenwood's finishing is elite level. It's not quite yet, right? The brilliant finish against Leeds, and this could be controversial. I'm sure there's United fans out there. I'm not saying he isn't a fantastic finisher. He is, but he's still got work to do. He's still raw. He's still going to develop, right? these numbers are quite interesting in that if you look at his shot accuracy last season, it's lower than both Martial and Cavani, 34.3 for Greenwood. So that's a number of his shots that hit the target compared to 46.5 for Martial, 44.1 shot accuracy from Cavani. Look at the big chance conversion. So Greenwood converted 2 of his 8 big chances, whereas Cavani, so 20% big chance conversion. Cavani was 56.3. And his overall conversion for Cavani, 29.4 compared to 10.4 for Greenwood. So his conversion rate wasn't that of a top-level finisher yet. And there's a big gap to Cavani, right? And this is why I think as soon as Cavani is fit and showing a bit of form, that's when the doubts about Greenwood in the central role will begin. I mean, what do you make of that, Dave?
Really interesting. I hadn't seen that before. I mean, the shots and, the shots on target and stuff. I mean, Greenwood is taking more shots than the others, so you'd expect there to be a bit of a drop off. But the big chance conversion, I thought Greenwood would be top of that list out of the 3.
Yeah, and what we got to say is he was wide a lot of the last season, whereas Cavani's in the middle. So perhaps the nature of those chances coming Greenwood's way and the nature of those shots is a lower XG. His XG delta, that's the difference between his XG and the amount of goals he scored. He's above that, 0.87. It's positive. That's the mark of a good finisher. But Cavani's above it by more, 1.96. So again, I do think there is a gap there. It's not a gulf, but there is a gap there between Greenwood's ability right now and Cavani. Cavani is world class, but of course Cavani's coming down and Greenwood's coming up, right? And it's just how much that's going to affect things this season.
Well, it's why Solskjaer was so desperate to keep Cavani at the club for another season, and I think there's so much that Greenwood can learn from him. This guy that's like kind of done it all, and I think the finishing. I mean, this is really interesting because there is just that strong narrative, isn't there, about he's the best finisher at the club. You hear it all the time. Gary Neville says it all the time and everything. But yeah, Cavani is better, so he can learn from him.
Well, I mean, that's no crime, is it? Cavani's world class, absolutely world class. 136.8 minutes per goal compared to 260.6 for Greenwood, 371.3 for Martial. Martial really isn't a factor. The only thing that worries about Martial is he's not going to keep quiet on the bench. I can't see him being a player that is happy sitting on the bench in the Premier League every week, right? So he's going to get minutes somewhere. He might not get starts, but he's going to kick off, isn't he? Don't you think, Martial?
Well, yeah. Or he just will sulk and just not really bother anyone, just be really grumpy all the time. I mean, again though, Martial, I think he has been the centre forward of United, so I don't suddenly just think he's going to only play left wing, and that's going to free up Cavani and Greenwood. I think Martial will get some minutes up front as well. Sancho's versatility is good for Greenwood because Sancho can easily play on the left, and he can cut inside, but. A front 3 of Sancho, Greenwood, and Martial wouldn't be completely ridiculous. I mean, the pace that they have with that would be amazing. So Cavani's obviously a no-go. I think there's going to be minutes to be shared, but Greenwood, I think I agree with you. He's the one that worries me the most this week. Yeah,
short term, definitely, and also Pogba's got a key role to play in this because if he goes back to if they don't go double pivot, if they don't go Fred and McTominay, and Pogba goes back into the 2 with Bruno in front, then that makes it better for Greenwood as well. The only issue is, are they going to do that? I mean, Varane is going to make the defence a lot stiffer, but are they immediately going to go, Varane's in, right, we're going with one CDM? I don't know. I don't know how certain that is. A lot of people are talking like Pogba's just going to drop back. He's not going to play on the left, but he was pretty successful playing on the left, wasn't he, at the weekend?
And not always the most successful playing in the middle, especially with Fernandes. Fernandes, the stats are there that suggest that Fernandes isn't as effective when he has to cover a bit for Pogba's runs going forward. So, they stumbled on something that works. They might not change anything up for Southampton.
But all good for now. I think the message is, though, it's not a done deal yet with Greenwood or Pogba, right? We've got to see how it shakes up. Forwards, not too much to look at here. I thought Vardy was impressive, though. I mean, I think he started the season far better than I expected because he did start to show signs last season that he was perhaps in decline, shall we say. Are we brave enough to say that? I guess we can. But 8 touches in the box, 6 shots, and 3 on target, 0.63 expected goal involvement on the day. Got the goal, of course, and looked alive, didn't he? And they played just one up front, and that was interesting. Iheanacho coming on the sub. Looks like Iheanacho's not going to be a factor yet.
Yeah, and it's weird how long he's going to be happy at sort of the bench. Arguably Leicester's best player last season. such a strong end. Is he going to be happy with getting 20 minutes every game coming on for Barnes? I don't know. And I was talking to Gianni about this earlier. It's, Leicester have got so many different ways of playing, so many different systems. They can play 5 at the back, they can play 2 up front, but there doesn't seem to be a system which gets all their best players in. So like Vardy, Iheanacho, Barnes, Tielemans, Ndidi, Maddison, I don't really see how they can play all 6 of those. So there's always going to be someone missing out. And I think Iheanacho might be the kind of long-term solution to Vardy. But they're not going to leave Vardy out, especially when he has a game like he did. His celebration as well to the Wolves fans was just peak Vardy, wasn't it?
He loves all that, doesn't he?
He does.
He loves
great.
all that. What about Dennis for Watford? That came from nowhere, didn't it? This guy had got 2 goals in 23, I think, for Bruges last season. Not even on my radar. I had no inkling that he would even start, because I thought Cucho Fernandez may start, but he came off the bench and scored. But Dennis, a goal and assist on his debut. He got the injury, which has put some people off, but a lot of people have gone in for him at 5 million. Do you think there's any potential there, or is it all about Sarr for you?
I'm trying so hard to not say that he was a menace.
Don't do that. Don't do the menace joke. But, we'd have got points for avoiding that. But yeah, Scoutcast did it last night and everything. Anyway, go on.
He was a bit of a menace though, wasn't he?
He was,
to be fair to him. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a Nasher-based joke, but my cold is stopping me from thinking of it. There's probably something there. Answers on a postcard. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go Watford striker. I mean, he's better than any of the 4-5 forwards. So I guess if you could actually get a 5 forward who looks like he's going to play a bit, so he's not a bad option there. But I don't know when I'll be starting him with so many options around 6 to 7-5. But yeah, decent first game for him. But
I wouldn't endorse it because they got João Pedro, who probably will be first choice, and Cucho, as I said, came off the bench and looked good as well. So there's still uncertain. I mean, Watford have got 15 strikers in the game, something like that.
Yeah, I know. So, that's the issue.
It really is. So, and just to finally look at Ings, like 0.01 expected goal involvement, non-penalty. There you go, and you got your goal. That's fortune. That is. Let's see what he does this week.
I would say it was the worst performance from him, but he just didn't get the ball at all. Like they just could not find ways to get him the ball in the dangerous areas. So even though his stats were poor and you'd say he had a poor game, there's not really much he could do because they just couldn't seem to find him. So it's only going to get better for him, I think.
How's it work with Watkins back? That's why I still don't get it.
Me neither.
Still don't.
The only thing I can see is 4-4-2. But that's the only thing that makes sense to me. They just
conceded 3 goals to Watford. Is he going to play 2 up front? And they're not strong enough, I don't think, defensively in midfield to play a 4-4-2. No.
Well, he's going to have to go back on the fact he said he's not going to play Watkins on the left because he has to.
But he won't know, because he lives in the real world, not the fantasy world. Let's just get that straight, shall we?
Yeah. I don't know. And like seeing them against Watford, I wonder if he even knows because it was so bad.
He's got a lot of good players there, right? El Ghazi, Traore, obviously Bailey to fit in. He's got a lot of good players, and I think he's got. They obviously signed those 3 players to replace Grealish, and now it's like, can we get them in the same team in a system that works? And that's Smith's challenge, right?
I thought Bailey did well when he came on. Yeah, got the assist and added that kind of spark. I don't think it's any coincidence he came on and they scored. So he is. Yeah, we'll talk about watch list in a second, but yeah, he's on mine. Yeah,
so these are the watch lists at the moment. No goalkeepers for either of us. These are just players that we looked at in game week 1, and we'll take onwards.
I did put Raya on mine.
I did think about it. Oh, did you? Oh, did I miss him off on Bell?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he did okay, didn't he? On the night. Obviously, the clean sheet wasn't expected. But he was. I looked at the BPS. I think he got 18 BPS. I think it was Woodman for Newcastle who topped the BPS charts for keepers. So he might be one worth looking at.
He got the penalty saved, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, always pushes them up.
But no, I think I'm talking about baseline BPS. So I don't think that would have counted in that. Yeah, so I think he did well overall, but. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to consider goalkeeper changes just yet, but obviously as we near wildcard time, game week 7, that will be what we look at. Let's look briefly then at our watch list. Tierney's top for me. Creswell after that. You've got the same 2. Same 3, in fact. Tierney, Creswell, Rudiger.
I didn't do them in order.
Right,
I thought for symmetry I'd map them to yours, but they're just the general people.
Those are the order for me. I think for you, where would you? What's the next defender in line for you? Would you say if you're going to look at a defensive transfer?
Yeah, good question. I don't really want to make a defensive transfer, which is it. I mean, I'm looking. It's probably going to be White for Tierney if I do anything in 4, which I like the look of. Pereira's someone that does interest me as well at 5-5. I thought if he can start, we were kind of questioning whether he's going to get back to his best because he obviously had that injury last season, but he looked good again for Leicester, one of the few players that did really. Or it could be Livramento, at 4 million, he could be the Tsimikas way out that we've been looking for. Also, but yeah, I'm hoping not to make a defensive transfer for a while.
Also, I've got Brandon Williams on there because he's nearing a move. It looks like nearing a loan move, right? So once he moves, he's going to be a regular starter, and he does offer threat. Even if he goes to Norwich, he's not a bad option to have because he might pull an assist out now and again. What do you make of Duffy, by the way? He lined up and had a good game. Do you think there's a chance that he might hold his start at 4 million?
Shots of all defenders, I believe, was Shane Duffy. He keeps his place. He keeps his place. For now. He's not going to get dropped after that performance. I think Veltman comes straight back in at right wing back. So I think people like you and I have got him. Don't need to worry too much.
Yeah,
I think that system, it worked in the second half against Burnley, and we need Veltman. He's by far the best wing back we got. So he'll be in. But yeah, I think Duffy was. I wasn't expecting that. I was not expecting it. But he's a good defender, and he's had a good partnership with Dunk in the past. So he could make a claim for staying in the team, but he's always going to be a bit.
Would be handy with his goal threat. Definitely would be handy. But I mean,
guess he was back in training today.
Go on,
little Lamptey.
Lamptey, was he? Oh yeah, but would you trust him? I mean, if he came back and started a couple of games, I'd still want to give it longer.
No is the answer. But what I mean is, it means Veltman would move back to centre back,
right?
And then Duffy would be the first sacrifice.
Right, okay. I'm not sure how to react to that because Veltman got his only assist from centre back, so even though he played wing back,
he did.
But yeah, I mean, okay, that's interesting. But I think
he scored, didn't he, from right wing back?
Did he? Okay.
Did he? Maybe. Maybe.
But Lamptey's going to need time. I mean, I just don't know. I mean,
he's not going to be an option until second half of the season. But there could be sort of change. I mean, it means Gross, for example, might not play right wing back anymore and go back to centre mid. It'll just.
Gross started left wing back. Did you see that?
Yeah.
What was that about? I mean, they changed it, but I was like, it was a bit crazy. I mean, what's going on there? I mean, odd.
Well, this is what I can never understand, but Potter does sometimes, is that he does something like that. We play absolutely terribly. He then makes the team look more normal and we play really well. And everyone's like, oh, Potter is a genius. What a manager. Really got them off the second half. So, well,
he didn't take credit for the subs, though, to be fair, because they asked about that and... He was quick to give the players the credit, but yeah, he has to,
doesn't he? He can't be like, yeah, it's all me.
You can if you're Big Sam. That's exactly what Big Sam does. Yeah, of course, it's all about my subs. But yeah, I mean, I think Potter is odd sometimes with what the teams he starts with. He does pull some surprises out. He
does overcomplicate things. Yeah. He's obviously a very good manager, and I'm glad we have him, but. Sometimes you look at the lineups and you just think, oh my God, just play players in their normal positions and we'll probably win this game quite comfortably. But yeah, this can be a little bit frustrating. Moving
into midfield, we both got Son and Sarr. I mean, for me, Son's a player I'm looking at game week 3. And I was looking at Rafinha, but with the complications on the international break, Sarr probably goes above him now in my thinking, because it obviously means I can keep 0.5 in the bank as well and then maybe consider Teeny later if he doesn't rise in price. Greenwood is third on my list. No doubt, really, that he is the best short-term option, but I think mid-term it's Son and Sarr that I'm looking at over him. And Mbeumo's on there as well. Willock is on yours as well. Anyone you want to pick out there? You're sharing a lot of names the same as me, but you've got Ali in there. Interesting.
Yeah, I'll put Ali in there. I mean, if he's going to be playing regularly as a 10 with Spurs' fixtures of 6-5, I think he's in with a shout. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I'm finding it hard at the moment, and it's why there's such a strong template to really pick out too many names. Willock will be interesting if he moves to Newcastle. If he can show the form that he did at the end of last season, he could be a great pick. I was impressed with Bailey, but the fixtures turned, so he's a bit of a wait and see. Mount, obviously tough fixtures, but Mount will be on my watch list all season, I think, because I think he could have a really, really good...
He'll be on our watch list, but really never in our teams, right?
I think he could well be.
He's just a player that we'll admire from afar without actually getting... Mind you, when Chelsea fixtures turn...
Game week 7, I mean, what other... it's going to be hard. You're not going to pick like a Pulisic or a Werner or someone like that. It's probably going to be Havertz or Mount in midfield.
Yeah.
And at the moment, I'd favour Mount. Yeah, Ali's interesting. I mean, Ali, I think we want Son, but Son could prove to be too hard to get. So I think Ali probably is the next best.
Well, we've got a choice to make, haven't we? We'll have a choice whether to go... If we keep Salah and Bruno, we can either go for Son... or we can try and get one of Lukaku and Kane in. I can't see it, though. I can't possibly see me having Bruno, Salah and Kane. maybe Lukaku at a stretch, but we're going to have to rip our entire team out with the wild card to get those 3 in. Whereas I think Salah, Bruno and Son is doable with keeping a decent team. But that means foregoing the 2 players top of our watch list up front, Kane and Lukaku. Have you got any early thoughts about what you're likely to do?
Well, I'm getting Kane if he moves to City.
and what? And who will go then? What will you do?
Well, I'll try and make a team of all 3. I'll try and make a team of all 3. If I can't, then...
Welcome to my team, Mr. Brownhill. That'll be, won't it?
Well, it could well be. But, there are some 5, 6 million options out there. I mean, having a team with like Sarr... I mean, Ings is going to be gone. I mean, who could you have around 6? I mean, you could have... I mean, Sarr's the only one I'm thinking. I'm drawing a bit of a blank for other names. I mean, Embuemo at 5.5.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're lucky. Well, I mean, I think if we get one playing 4 million defender, whether it be Williams, and perhaps we'll have to go 2 4 million defenders and a back 3, and then we've got options in midfield to fill for neighbours.
Benrahma, as Matic mentions in the chat. But the obvious downgrade is going to be Trent, isn't it? Because as soon as we start winning these premiums, a 7.5 defender is going to be too much.
Tom Stevenson's in the chat. He knows what he's talking about. He's gone Bruno out. And that's what I'm thinking as well. If I'm going to lose anyone for Lukaku or Kane, and if it is Kane, I will go Bruno out. Because Kane...
There's absolutely no way I'm losing Bruno.
Is there not?
No way. No way.
I think when you look at your team, when you try and get 3 in, you might change your mind.
I think I'd keep Bruno over Salah.
Oh...
I mean, it wouldn't be pretty, but it wouldn't be pretty going without Bruno, given what...
Well, we're going to talk about Bruno and Salah in a bit, right? And we'll look at...
Tough.
You might change your mind. So, what about Son in all this? Does he just... I mean, there's Son, a 10 million midfielder playing up front, if Kane does go. There's an argument to say, well, Son could outscore Kane anyway. We're presuming Kane's going to... I looked at that City game, and what I was thinking when I was watching is, what are they going to do with Kane in this team? Because it's no good him dropping deep into midfield and picking the ball up. He's going to have to be on the last defender, presumably. That's not really his game now, really, is it? It's not that. I mean, with the years to come, that's not going to be his game. He's going to get progressively a player who comes deep, scores opportunities coming into the box rather than someone who hangs on the last defender. But for City, they're going to. I mean, they can't have another player coming into midfield and linking play. They've got.
I think Lukaku would have been a better signing from.
I mean, he's going to be a brilliant signing, there's no doubt, and he'll finish their chances. But like I couldn't imagine how Grealish was going to fit in. If Kane does go, I just can't imagine how he's going to fit the pattern of play.
Well, it will work because you'll have Grealish, Gundogan, and De Bruyne or whoever that are able just to push on even more. It'll free them up to do more. So it will work. I mean, I think he's the perfect player for them because he's going to adapt so quickly into that kind of ever revolving, rotating squad of like world-class players. It'd just be nuts. It'd be absolutely nuts. And then he's always just there somehow, isn't he? He's always just there to finish off the chances that all their players are creating. I
thought it was a no-brainer, though. I thought, though, City and Kane, he's going to get 30 goals. But when I watched City at the weekend and the way they played, with Torres hardly getting a touch, Kane can't play that role. You know, he's not going to play that role where he's trying to make runs and touching the ball 15 times. He's going to want to be involved. So, again, they'll have to... I mean, it's like the Grealish thing. I wonder whether there's a bit of the Newcastle and Espria here, where they just sign a brilliant player but struggle for a while to fit him in, and it does ruin things a bit. And I worry that could happen. That with Grealish and Kane, both world-class players in my view, but Pep's got to make a system that works really quickly with those two players, and he might not achieve that. I don't know. That's my worry anyway.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's interesting. I think you might be overthinking a bit.
Of course, that's my job.
I think MO. I think if you stick a fully fit Kane into that squad, he'll hit the ground running. And you know, City get off to bad starts like this, and I think a lot of that is down to fitness.
Yeah.
So I think as soon as they're all up to speed and they're playing off each other, I don't think they'll be.
It's funny actually. People writing City off here and there, and remember they started.
It happens every year.
Started badly last season. Remember the Leicester game?
Year. I think it's every year. I don't think it's just last season, is it? They always seem to get off to a start like this, but obviously they'll click and they'll turn it around.
Other strikers on the watch list: Wilson, Jimenez, Calvert-Lewin. I've gone Bamford, Wilson, Armstrong.
Surprised Calvert-Lewin wasn't on yours.
Yeah, I like it. I want to see a bit more. I want to see away from home what Benitez does at Leeds, because he could be negative away from home. So I want to see. I was quite impressed with Everton, though. I mean, definitely they're going to give him service, right? That's clear. Townsend and Gray are there to provide chances for Charleston as well. and they did get the balls in, and Calvert-Lewin had a couple of good chances. Well, half chances for most players, but for him, because of his ability in the air, decent chances. So yeah, there's promise there. Maybe I should have considered him. Certainly, I'll be watching it. But I don't know if we can afford an $8 million striker. If we're going to look at this is the thing. Going Kane and Lukaku with 2 heavy hitters is going to shut off all that talent between 7 and 10 million in every position, and which might include Trent. Yeah. I don't know. It's a really we've got some big decisions to make.
I'm surprised with how attached to Trent you are. I mean, obviously he's great, but if we want to get close to having 3 premiums, it has to be the 7-5 defender who's the sacrifice.
Yeah, he probably will have to go, yeah. But I don't know if I'll do it. I think I might be in the camp who go in with just 2. I think Bruno will be going for me, maybe. Okay.
No, you said that before.
Yeah, I didn't I? Didn't go through with it. Predictions. This is where we stand on the predictions after week 1. 60% there. So, yeah, I don't even have to fudge these numbers. 6 out of 10 outcomes for me, 5 out of 10 for you. I got 2 scores correct. You beat me on the clean sheets. Not a bad start though. You've got to be happy with 50 and 60%, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. I mean, you're so good at when you get ones right, getting the correct scores. It's
not brilliant at it. I got the Leicester Wolves. You went big on Leicester and I went 1-0. What was the other one I got right? It was a 3-0. It was
Chelsea, I think.
Yeah, was it Chelsea? Oh, no, it was Liverpool. Liverpool at Norwich.
Oh, Liverpool. Sorry.
I went 3-0. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Let's look at this week's situation. So, once again, quite similar, even though I didn't see your scores beforehand. The game week fixtures then. Liverpool-Burnley is the early kickoff. And of course, we're talking about our captains. And we will in depth look at Salah and Fernandes to round the show off. Will we captain Salah in the first game? The early kickoff, right? It's a problem.
No.
Don't want it, do we?
It's never good. I mean, we should absolutely not be basing decisions on what time the teams kick off, unless it's after the international break and players might have had a bit more sleep. But yeah, we definitely shouldn't be this weekend. But yeah, I'm trying not to let that kind of thing factor into my decision. But yeah, I've just gone 2-0. I mean, I think I saw that Liverpool score. I actually thought Liverpool did not badly against Burnley, but struggled a bit against Burnley. And then I looked at the results and the fact they scored an average of 2.3 goals a game or something, and I thought, okay, they don't really struggle that much against Burnley. So I've just gone with the law of averages, 2 goals, which is about what they normally score against them.
Yeah, okay. I've gone 3-0 again. I think Liverpool will see some data on the Burnley defence in a bit, which may persuade you to up that prediction, but you can't now. It's settled. Aston Villa Newcastle, I've intriguingly gone for an away win here. I wasn't impressed with Villa. And actually, I thought Newcastle did all right in that game. I just think West Ham were too good for them, second half in particular. But I think they got a goal for it, Newcastle, with Sam Maximin. Obviously, Willock back in there now as well, likely to start this. I see them getting a couple of goals. So do you. Interestingly, you've gone, that they'll breach the Newcastle defence. And Newcastle's defence did look dodgy, didn't it?
It did. And I just think Villa are going to... they're going to sort it out. I don't know when it's going to be. It might not be this week. This is why I've gone for quite a close, sort of high-scoring game with Villa just edging it. But the players they've got up front are going to do some damage to Newcastle. They look so shaky at the back. So it's just, can Villa sort their defence out? And I'm going to say no, but they'll score more than Newcastle.
Look at this, though. I thought I was being clever going Brentford 2-1 at Palace. You did exactly the same.
Yeah.
So are you thinking like me that Palace look bad and Brentford will have their tails up?
I think this is just such a big game for Palace. Like it's unbelievable. Like to have like this kind of game week 2, because the fixture run Palace have got is, if they lose this game, is they're going to be bottom by game week 6.
Yeah, we can just remind ourselves of that. It's Brentford now in game week 2, but it's West Ham away, Spurs at home, Liverpool away, Brighton, which is a derby game at home, which is never easy, and then Leicester at home. A pretty bad run of fixtures, right? So Vieira's got it all to do if he loses this, right?
He has, and they were so bad against Chelsea. Like, all the things that Vieira promised that he'd deliver, attacking, possession-based football and all that, they didn't even look like they'd, had a training game together. He didn't have his
players on, though, did he? The players that he's signed aren't there yet, aren't ready. So, to be fair...
But are they going to come in and suddenly just completely change things, or are they going to take it up? They're just such a team in transition that I think early on you've got to back against the teams playing against them. Yeah,
I agree. And I think that, Vieira's already saying, look, he's calling for patience already. I think he's looked at the fixture ticker, he's sorted by difficulty and gone, bloody hell, I better call for patience. And he's right, because
it's going to be another De Boer.
No, I don't think they'll get rid. I think Vieira could be a real success there. I like him, and they've just got to. They've just the Palace board, I think, will keep faith. They did with Hodgson. I don't think they'll get him out quickly, unless there's a player.
Hodgson was they knew they were getting a good manager with him, a manager who's managed at the top level before and done things. Vieira hasn't. Vieira's coming into this with no real experience.
Yeah. He's got to get the players on his side. If there's any hint of the players wanting him out, then that's what will turn it. But I think Palace will keep faith. Okay, let's talk FPL. Andy's in there donating so Az can buy some Lemsip. Yeah, good point actually. Yeah, it's getting progressively worse as the show goes on. You're hanging on. Keep going, Az. Leeds Everton, we've gone home win 2-1 to Leeds for you. I've gone 1-0. I know that Seb doesn't fancy Leeds' chances. I was listening to the Scoutcast last night, which was excellent. And Seb was talking about Leeds, and he's not playing Rafinha. He's playing Dina over Rafinha, and he supports Leeds.
Wow.
Yeah. So he doesn't fancy Leeds at all. And I guess, there wasn't much to take from that United game for Leeds, was there? They didn't really show too much to get you enthusiastic about this game. But I still think home crowd, they're legit 1-0. What are you saying? 2-1?
Yeah, that's. I'm thinking the home crowd's gonna take them through. I think they're a bit of a different beast, and it's having the home crowd for Leeds. There's just a couple of teams, isn't there, where you just think home crowd. Like I think Liverpool, I think Leeds. I think it was big for United. It's big for everyone, but there's just certain clubs I think will really benefit from it. Is Phillips back? Are we expecting Phillips?
Yeah, I think
to be
he will come back
in the side.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, I think if Phillips is back in the side, then they're a completely different outfit. And yeah, Everton were good, but I think, like you say, I'm interested to know how they set up away from home and whether they keep that supply coming to Calvert-Lewin. I think Bielsa's going to see those crosses and be like, okay, if we stop Calvert-Lewin, we stop pretty much everything that Everton are capable of doing. So yeah, he's a clever manager. I think tactically tactically though, it's Benitez and Bielsa. They're two sort of world-class tactical managers. So it could be a really interesting game, this.
Yeah, and they're missing Llorente, so that's in the centre of defence. There is a weak spot there for now. I think Phillips, if he plays, is key because I think he'll probably drop back to help when Everton are in possession with the aerial threat. So Bielsa's got tools there that can deal with it. So I think it's a real fascinating game, and I'm not as pessimistic as Seb is about his own team. Man City Norwich, I'm optimistic. Even though City were poor, I've gone big because I like you said, I do think that it's too easy to write City off. And if you looked at the XGI over the game week, they were third. They did create, I think, 14 chances. They weren't clear-cut chances, but they played well enough at Spurs to suggest they'll have too much for Norwich. You've gone 3-1. You see Norwich scoring. I don't know where you think that goal's going to come from. I've gone 4-0. How are Norwich going to score at City? Who's going to get that goal?
I saw against Liverpool. They had a game plan, right? It didn't really work, but it was basically just get the ball over the top and get it to Pukki, get it to Cantwell running through, and just keep trying that until it works. And I just think City, if Ake plays again, I don't know if Stones is back in training or things. I just think they, at the moment, they can get caught out by balls like that, and they won't as the season progresses. But right now, I think they're going to be a bit. I just think Norwich are going to be the second game of the season. They're going to have some confidence after coming up. They're going to try that ball over the top, and I've just seen City early on in the season getting caught out by it. So I might be wrong. Maybe it'll just be a routine City win. But I just think Norwich have got a goal in them. But I think City will have a little bit too much.
I think the big changes for City will be at the back. I think getting Walker, Zinchenko and Stones in, it might not be all three. Cancelo may end up playing left back. I think Walker will come in. I think those players will make a big difference to City, not only defensively but also possession-wise and what they do with the ball and allowing the midfielders to push on. I think Stones and Zinchenko in particular. Mendy and Ake were poor.
Oh God, Mendy. Mendy was so bad. Really, really was bad. Ake was. I've really rated Ake in the past. For Bournemouth, I thought he was like a top centre back, but he's just really not delivering at City. But Mendy was worst player on the pitch by far.
Yeah, even though he got a bonus point, but we won't talk about that. I can tell you why if you really want to know, but I'm not going to go into it. Brighton versus Watford. Brighton 2-0. Optimistic, not like you for Brighton.
I know. Normally, I'm.
And who gets those goals then?
Very, very reserved. I just think Watford are going to be a bit too happy.
They'll be a bit too happy with the opening win.
Yeah, I think they'll be a bit too happy. And, you know, Brighton, we're an established Premier League side now. Veltman will be coming back in. I think Potter's not going to mess around, you know, with weird formations. I think he's just going to play like the strongest team. And it's just going to be all about whether we can deal with Sarr.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think, you know, with the three at the back and we'll have more cover than Villa did. I think we can keep him quiet, and if we keep him quiet, then we should win.
I'd have liked to have seen Dan Burn against Sarr. That would have been a battle.
Oh yeah,
half,
that would be
it?
great, wouldn't it? Oh my god,
yeah,
he'd been red carded after about 3 minutes.
I don't know. Every time I doubt Dan Burn, he plays really well. Every time you play City, go, Dan Burn against Sterling, and he always.
He's good. He's good attacking wise. He's better than you'd think attacking wise, but a suspect defensively for sure.
I don't know. I think he does a good shift. Yeah. I've gone 1-1 in that game. I think Watford will take confidence in. I think they'll peg you back. I can see Deeney coming on, getting a dodgy penalty at the end. Southampton United, you've gone big here. This is where you've shown your true colours. Back in Bruno, no doubt. You've gone 4-1. I've gone 2-0. So you don't put any stock in the fact that this is Southampton's first home game. You think that it'll be a Hasenhüttl capitulation, as in we're getting caught, but I'm not going to change it, and we're going to get thrashed.
My worry with Southampton being at home is that the home crowd encourages them too much to attack. Right. And if they do attack, United are just going to absolutely destroy them. But if they sit back, United are just going to absolutely destroy them. So I just can't see any way in which Southampton don't concede quite a few goals in this match, because I think losing Vestergaard a few days before the season starts means they're going to be, you know, at risk from set pieces, from Shaw and Fernandes, and Maguire particularly is going to benefit from that. I think, you know, they're going to have to attack to try and get something out of the game, and they're just going to get picked off on the counter. I think United is going to boss the midfield completely because, you know, I mean, they've got Ward-Prowse in there, but I don't really see a lot of, like, you know, kind of tenacious Southampton midfielders. And I think the mood at the camp of Southampton is going to be quite low. Having lost Vestergaard, having lost that game to Everton in which they were winning, I think it's a brilliant game for United, this one, and and we'll talk about it in a bit. It's why I'm on Bruno at the moment.
Yeah, it's funny. Southampton, they either will bounce back or they get thrashed, and I've gone in between that. I've gone a 2-0 defeat, which maybe I shouldn't have done. Maybe I should have gone a 0-0 or 1-0 Southampton or 7-0 to United, because it does feel like that, doesn't it? Like, we've seen him in the past get humiliated and then really turn it around, and he can get a performance out of them against big teams as well. They've beaten the City, of course, right? So I do think there's a chance, right? Southampton will surprise us, because they have in the past.
But they're just getting worse. They're a team that just gets worse year on year.
Yeah, because
like,
they
with the
sell
players they lose.
Players, yeah.
I know. I mean, they've lost Ings and Vestergaard.
Yeah.
Who are, you know, apart from Ward-Prowse, I'd say they're their 2 out of 3 most influential and best players.
Yeah.
And they're both gone. I mean, Armstrong looks a decent buy, but it's a champion striker. It's a big step up for him. And, you know, they're going into this United game. I mean, it's sooner or later they're just gonna run out and get relegated.
Yeah.
I think there's a real chance it's going to be this year.
Oh, I hope not. I like Southampton. I like Ralph a lot. Wolves and Spurs, not much joy here. We're predicting few goals. 1-0, you've gone Wolves. Interesting. You don't think Spurs will kick on then after the victory over City?
This one's a little bit of a punt. I was going to give it to a Spurs win, and then I thought, well, I like it when a team's playing like their old manager, because often the old manager goes back and you think, oh, if anyone knows how to beat Wolves, it's going to be Nuno. But then Wolves have got like a point to prove. They're like, oh, you left us for Spurs. Like, we're going to reset the game.
Did he leave them for Spurs? I mean, did he?
Well, he left them in the lurch a little bit and then went to Spurs. I guess it's the same thing. But I mean, he signed a new contract in like Christmas, didn't he? And then announced at the end of the season he was leaving. So it was a little bit of a surprise. But yeah, and the home crowd as well. And yeah, I think Spurs were absolutely brilliant against City. But whether they can reach those levels, you know, in matches like this where you maybe expect them to win, the jury's still out.
Yeah,
because I mean they got the most out of players who I didn't think had it in them. Like Højbjerg I mean, Højbjerg's a good player, but he was like a different class. Davinson Sanchez, best performance I've ever seen him do, without a doubt, against City. Didn't know he had that in him. Like, Tanganga, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Skip in midfield. I mean, he was brilliant at Norwich last season, but he's now in the Premier League against the champions. Puts in a performance like that. Even the likes of Mora, Bergwijn, like they get so direct getting the ball. Every single player to a man was unbelievable. If they can keep that up, they can. I don't think they can challenge for the top 4, but they can show they can sort of play anyone. But I do think it's going to be games like this that let them down.
And that rise to the top 4 starts with a 1-0 defeat at Wolves then, as well. Fair enough. I've gone 1-1. I think Son will get something. I do think it'd be a tight game. I think Wolves did surprise me game week 1, and I think there's more to them than I thought. So it'd be interesting to see if anything comes out fantasy-wise. Not much doubt about this one. Arsenal-Chelsea, we didn't see anything at Brentford to suggest that Arsenal have a chance in this one. Lukaku could debut, of course, and we said how Tuchel's probably going to look at that Brentford game and think, well, we'll get our new striker on Ben White and not long balls and so on. They'll have too much for them, won't they? Can't see Arsenal breaching the defence, and Chelsea will have too much.
I spent quite a long time on this one because originally I put like a comfortable Chelsea win. And then I thought, actually, a lot of the time Arsenal step up in these games, especially in the London games, and they get a result which you maybe wouldn't be expecting it to be. So then I put it as 0-0. And then I thought, do I really trust Arsenal to keep a clean sheet? Not really. So then I had it as like 1-1, and yeah, in the end, I just thought, I'll back Chelsea to win this one. So that's the long story of my decision making on this. I don't think it's going to be a Chelsea hammering. I think Arsenal will improve from Brentford. Like I said, they can't get any worse, and they'll step it up a little bit. But I just think Chelsea are too solid. I just can't see how Arsenal are going to score.
Yeah. I've gone 2-0. You've gone 1-0. And then finally Monday night. It's a good game Monday night. Monday Night Football is back with West Ham versus Leicester. Difference of opinion here. I've gone 2-1 West Ham. You've gone Leicester. You really are behind Leicester this season, aren't you?
They start seasons well. In their history, and I think they've got a really good squad, and I think they've got a good manager, and they've got different systems that can frustrate. And I think at the moment with West Ham's defence, I'm not too sure that was it Dawson and. Are
you sure about Leicester's defence? Amity looked a calamity.
Well, no, I'm not. But they've got Vestergaard now, who'll probably come in.
Yeah, but new signing, he's got to settle in up against Antonio.
Well, I'm not complete. That's why I said West Ham will score. Oh. But I think in the game where 2 players score, I think Leicester have got a little bit more about them. So I'm backing them a narrow win.
I'm tipping more Ben Rama joy there. Come on, Benny.
I think we've got Barnes and Ben Rama between us. I think we're a bit biased.
No, I think West Ham win that. Right, Captain Matrix. Before we talk about this week's captaincy. I've moved Fernandes over to Salah now because before I thought it was straightforward, right? He gets a hat-trick, and like I said for the title of the show, 3 good reasons to consider Bruno, right, for the captaincy. We can't dismiss that. Obviously, it's recency bias, right? You can hear Ross screaming at us now, right, Mr. Raptor? And it is, right? But that performance, he'll go in, he's full of confidence, obviously. Pre-season got the free kick, now they followed it with a hat-trick. It's a difficult choice all of a sudden, isn't it? And looking forward, Fernandes is probably our captain of choice for game week 3 at Wolves away, and then game week 4 Newcastle at home. Suddenly, Salah's domination on the captaincy for the first 6 game weeks is eroded. Right?
Can I just say that this is what I said about having Salah and Fernandes? Because everyone was saying Salah's going to be captain every week, and I was like, no, because you might find that Fernandes does well and Salah maybe doesn't do so well, and then you want to switch him up. But then again, Salah did do really well, so it's hard to say. Yeah, I think this is a really tricky one. It's a really tricky one for me because it's a bit like my head and my heart again at crossroads, because I think Salah is the safer choice. I think he gets something at Burnley. I'm not saying for a second that I think he's going to blank. I know you've got some stats on Salah against Burnley.
No, not against Burnley. No, I haven't. No, but go on. I mean, okay. I know his record against Burnley is bad. I can tell you what it is: 7 matches, 1 goal, 2 assists.
Yeah, that's the stat I saw on the notes, right? I thought that's what you're going to wheel out. So there's this thing with them. I mean, it's the same manager and it's the same system and stuff. And Burnley do seem to have a way of frustrating Salah, but I do think Salah will score. I also think Fernandes will score against Southampton or get something, and I think the potential for United to go absolutely berserk against Southampton is higher.
Yeah.
Which is the reason why I'm leaning towards Fernandes, because I don't want to play safe. I know it could hurt. I know Salah could hit a hat-trick and Fernandes could get... But that could happen any week, right? You've got to see these kind of opportunities. And yeah, I just think Southampton are a worse side than Burnley at the moment. And I think United have just got some swag about them.
All right. Yeah, hold that. Let's look at some data. So this is Salah versus Bruno over the season, right? Very, very close. I think in terms of minutes, they played almost identical minutes: 3,079, 3,105. Goals: 20 for Salah, 18 for Fernandes. 5 assists for Salah, 13 for Fernandes. He clearly had the edge there. Points: 237 to 213 Bruno has the edge again, right? Double figure returns. And this is where it's crucial. And this is where I think this is what you're getting at, right? 6 for Salah, 12 for Bruno, right? So I do concede that Bruno is likelier to go big. I think Salah's probably the most likely to get a return, as in Bruno's more likely to blank. But if Bruno does return, it's more likely to be a bigger number.
That's exactly it. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I mean, everything else, though, minutes per point, Bruno has the edge 13.1 to 14.5. Then you get into the territory where Salah dominates for XGI, 21.63 versus 17.9 minutes per XGI, touches in the box, shots in the box. All of that is in Salah's favour. But minutes per shot, 24.4 compared to 25.7. Not a lot in it, right? And then Salah loses ground to Bruno on creativity. But then let's not forget, Salah is at home, right? And Bruno is away. So let's look at the home and away data. And, here again, if anything, it gets a bit more in favour of Salah, I would say. Although, again, the stat that I would look at, which is interesting, is Salah only got 2 double-figure returns in home matches last season. And Bruno came in with 7 away from home.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just 2. Yeah.
So again,
that could be lack of crowd.
And this is it, right? We got to think that the Anfield crowd, if you're going to name the crowds most likely to influence what we see on the pitch, you would put the Anfield crowd up there high, wouldn't
definitely. You? Yeah, highest, I think.
And that's why, Salah, I was quite surprised that Salah's numbers were so good at home, because Liverpool, shall we not forget, were pretty dreadful. We thought that was a narrative, but we'll look at some team data in a minute, which shows actually it wasn't that bad. But Salah here, his XG is higher at home than Bruno is away. XGI non-penalty 10.6 to 8.2. Minutes per XGI non-penalty 144.7 for Salah, 189.8 for Bruno. Touches in the box, 178 touches in the box in home matches for Salah, 56 for Bruno in away matches. That's a considerable gap. You'd expect it because Salah's playing up front and Bruno's more withdrawn. But even so, that makes me think, look, Bruno. But then against Leeds, Bruno got into the box, right? What we saw against Leeds was almost a different flavour of Bruno. But was that for that one game? That's what makes me wonder. But anyway, I mean, overall, this data has me leaning towards Salah, right? Both in terms of overall the season and looking at Salah's home form versus Bruno's away data. I slightly come downside of Salah, but it does reinforce the idea that Bruno's got the bigger score in him if he does return. It's when we look at the team data, though, this is when it really does start stacking up against United a bit and Bruno a bit. Liverpool's home form, I thought, was poor last season, and it was. They had some shock home defeats. And 29 goals compared to United's away tally of 35. XG low, Liverpool surpassed United. 31.9 at home compared to 29.1 for United away. Shots, 317 shots to 247 United away. And they beat them for open play, for big chances, shots in the box. So that's surprising. I thought Liverpool's home form would actually be worse than United's away form last season, data rather than form, rather, because I thought Liverpool were that bad for quite a prolonged spell. But actually, it's still strong. Then,
and United were better away from home than at Old Trafford as well, weren't they?
They were, because many teams were. Right, so that did surprise me that there was quite a big gap there. It's when you look at Burnley's away defence compared to Southampton's home defence. And I know Southampton looked poor in game 1, and I know they've lost Vestergaard, but do we put a load of faith in that one game and that one thing? Do we say, OK, well, Southampton are far weaker defensively than they were last season? Possibly, you could. But after one game, it's a risk, right? What you've got here is data for the season, which shows that actually at home, they weren't that bad. Certainly not as bad as Burnley were away from home. So in terms of XG, 27.2 Burnley away from home compared to Southampton 22.4. Shots conceded. Burnley conceded 322 shots away from home compared to Southampton's 188. It's a massive difference. So, I mean, you can go further down the list. Double digits allowed, both of them allowed a lot of double digits. Burnley away 16, Southampton at home 15. So we could see big scores here. And I think there's a chance we'll see double figures from both Salah and Bruno again. But I look at this data, particularly the away defence for Burnley, and it has me much more confident in Salah than Bruno. Because you've got to think as well, Southampton's home defence was good last season, and they're in front of their fans for their first game of the season. That will lift them, right? What do you think, having looked at this data?
Yeah, I mean the signs are good for yeah, it's just such a 50-50 call for me. It really is. I mean, the stats don't really change my opinion. I think they just kind of support the fact that I think Bruno has the bigger chance of getting a huge haul, but I think Salah is the safer pick. And it's just how the thing is, I own both, right? So if Salah gets 20 and Fernandes gets 10, then it's only 10 points lost. But is it worth it when I'm so not sure about kind of which one to go for? Like, if you offered, I think if we talked about before, if you got offered a goal for your captain every week, would you just take it, or would you always try and get more? Because if you got 6-7 points every week from your captain, I think you'd probably end up with quite a decent record rather than chasing kind of the bigger hauls. So it's burnt me before chasing these big hauls, but I just see a potential in there. Just I mean, Liverpool weren't that good against Norwich. Like Salah was.
Their finishing wasn't bad. That was that's what let them down a lot last season.
Yeah, they finished chances, but I mean Norwich were in the game for spells. Like they had a plan, and it didn't work, but they looked like they had a little bit of something about them, and Liverpool struggled a little bit to create kind of really good chances. Salah was just on one. I mean, Jota played well, but Salah was just on another plane that game. If he'd been not as good, I think they might have struggled in that game more. Whereas United were in second gear for the whole game. I always felt that they could have got even more than they got, and they got loads. I just can't see any way in which Southampton have a chance of getting something from that game. Whereas I think there is a chance that Burnley could frustrate Liverpool.
There is a chance, but Burnley, I looked at the data for the game week 1, and Burnley's defence was almost exactly the same as Southampton's. I think 3 big chances, 14 shots conceded. But Burnley were at home to Brighton, possibly the most impotent attack you can think of. And Southampton were at Everton, who did look lively in attack and have better players than Brighton do up front. So if I was putting any stock in that defence, I would say Burnley's defence is still obliging, right? It's still giving up opportunities. So I don't know. I mean, you can't put too much stock in one game, of course. This data is last season, so it's different players, different circumstances. A few comments, interestingly, in chat. I think it's Maher Sharma saying, well, Burnley have a lot of shots from range, that's why they beat them for shots. But if you look at shots in the box conceded, it's still 202 versus 122, so that's not a factor. And I think Andy Mack was saying, yeah, but you've got to compare data when fans were in the stadium. Well, the narrative last season was the home teams weren't on form. So why were Burnley so bad away from home if home teams weren't on form? So that really doesn't apply. If anything, Burnley's away form should have been better, given that they're away and playing teams without their home crowd there. I don't know. I mean, all I know is I think I was planning on going Salah, and there's nothing in this data to convince me otherwise. If I was going to Bruno, I would be doing it on the basis of what I saw against Leeds, and I think that's a little bit dangerous. I don't think it's going to be calamitous, though.
No, I just think sometimes like Salah's going to be so highly owned this week, and I like to use EO where I can, and I mean it is close because I can see why when it's a 50-50 call you would go with like the safer pick and try and make up ground elsewhere. But also don't forget the templates are so strong this season, particularly at the moment, that making up that ground elsewhere is difficult because we've all got pretty much the same team anyway. And sometimes you just see something like the United performance, and it wasn't just reliant on one player. Like if Salah has an off day, I wonder how many Liverpool can get. Whereas I look at United and I saw every player in that side playing well. And that makes me think that the potential for a massacre is higher in that game. And I want to captain the player who's at the heart of it all. That's it. I mean, I don't obviously Salah's not a bad pick. I'd be amazed if Salah came away without a goal or two. But I think Bruno could well hit high double digits again.
But if you remember at the top of the show, he'd only scored 1 goal from open play before. Yeah. In 13. And he only scored more than 1 goal in a game 3 times in 51 appearances. So do you not think that you're going, you think now Bruno's suddenly a guy who hauls every game because of the hat-trick? Do you not think there's a bit of that?
But it's not just Bruno. It's the team. It's United having strengthened so much in the attacking areas, and it's Southampton.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't Southampton, if it was like someone else, anyone else. But I just think at the moment Southampton are there. Southampton are there to be taken.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do the chips experiment again. You got 10 chips. You're going to split them amongst the players for the captaincy. I'll go first. I'm going to go 6 on Salah, 4 on Bruno. I think I'm not going to put 1 on. Actually, no. I'll put 5 on Salah, 4 on Bruno, and I'll stick 1 on De Bruyne for Norwich. Why not? Let's go Mahrez. 1 on Mahrez. There we go. 5 on Salah, 4 on Bruno, and 1 on Mahrez. Where are you going with your 10 chips?
I'll go 6 and 4. 6 on Fernandes and 4 on Salah.
Right. And that is why you're doing it, right? And we talked about, when it is close, when it is a split, when we're looking at this and going, I'll put an even number of chips almost, that is when you want to think about going different to the effective ownership, because there's a chance, there's an opportunity, right? That's what you're getting at.
Yeah, and at a time when there aren't too many opportunities, because all our teams are the same.
True.
And it might backfire, it might put me down a bit, but I've recovered from worse starts. So
I don't think it will. I think they're both going to come out with something. I think it might be a goal for Salah and an assist and a bonus for Bruno.
Yeah.
Right, but it'll be pretty even, I think. But I'm still sticking with Salah. Right, let's look at your team. It's unchanged, isn't it? You're not making any. Are you changing the bench order or anything?
No.
Soufal out, right?
Yeah, that is the one change. Yeah, I've taken Soufal out and put Veltman in. Basically just based on my predictions. I think Brighton will keep a clean sheet in that, and yeah, I think Soufal will probably concede. And I've got Barnes as well, so I want to avoid the clash. And we've talked a bit about that before, about wanting to avoid these clashes, especially kind of early on. So this is the team that gives me the biggest kind of like potential for points if Brighton get the clean sheet and Barnes scores. So yeah, just gonna go with that. Nothing too major report. I mean, obviously expecting things from Grealish. If he doesn't perform against Norwich, he might be on the chopping block quite early on. Ings has got to kind of perform in the next 2. He's going to be someone that I might look to get rid of. I want to do White to Tierney at some point. So there's a few things come in. But
have you got? I mean, I've got my transfers almost not booked in. I don't want to be criticised for that, but it's going to be Mahrez and Torres go for me in game week 3 because I don't want to be part of this anxiety on the rotation. Have you got similar transfers in mind, or is it still up in the air? Right, okay.
Absolutely no idea. I don't want to put pressure on my boys, but they're all playing for a place in my side going forward. And Barnes is going to obviously have that Norwich game in 3, but if he blanks in this game and doesn't get a huge return against Norwich, he could be the one that goes. Grealish is going to have to perform. There's some players who I'm looking at already. I'm thinking you need to get something from you lads. So yeah, nothing booked in yet.
Yeah, I was going to say you got players on the brink, haven't you? If they blank again, Ings, Grealish, Barnes are all wavering on the tightrope, aren't they, for you? So
yeah, and even the likes of White, Soufal, Veltman. There's changes that can definitely.
There's no end of players you could get rid of. Never a good sign, is it? Really?
No, I know.
So,
after game week 1.
So just to go for your team, it's Sanchez, Alexander-Arnold, Veltman, Tsimikas, Salah, Bruno, Grealish, Barnes, Ings, Antonio, Tony is the lineup.
It's horrible because I look at the team this week and I think, I look really strong. What can possibly go wrong? Yeah, probably everything.
Well, my team would look really strong if Torres and Mahrez were certain to start.
Yeah.
I would be sitting pretty. 100 points game week 1 with Torres and Mahrez in going against Norwich. I'd be laughing. But as it is, I've got to keep them because they might figure. But it's probably likely they're not going to, or going to get maybe 20 minutes each, or one might start. So I'm not actually very optimistic about my game week. I'm going Sanchez, Trent, Tsimikas, Shaw, of course, like everybody else. And then it's Torres, Bruno, Mahrez, Salah captain, Benrahma, Tony and Antonio. For me to have a good week, Benny's got to come up again and Tony's got to do something, which could happen. But I think I could have not a disastrous week. It depends how Greenwood does. Right? Greenwood is the one who could probably destroy me. If Greenwood and Son play up again, and there's every chance they will, and Mahrez and Torres don't turn up, I'm red arrow all the way, I think. But that's the way it is.
Shaw, I have to say, Shaw does worry me this week quite a lot. If he's on set pieces to a Vestergaardless Southampton, then yeah, it's a bit of a concern.
And they've got Eric Ramsey, the new set piece coach, and Maguire going up. Oh, anyway.
Oh, really? I haven't heard anything about him.
No, I haven't rolled it out every chance about it. Yeah, I know. Well, if you do go without Luke Shaw, what do you expect? We're going to remind you about it.
That's fair enough.
So Well, I've asked you again. Do you think? I'll ask you again. I mean, I know Luke wants me to do well with these two because he loves a risk. Do you think I'm silly keeping Torres and Mahrez? I mean, I could go Torres to Greenwood.
You can't sell them.
I've got 0.5 in the bank. Torres to Greenwood is an easy move. No, you don't think I can?
I don't think you can sell City players before Norwich because you'll just kick yourself if City turn up and win that game 5-0 and Torres is playing false 9.
Yeah, no,
it's not. It's just honestly, it's just not worth it. Just ride it out for another week.
Yeah.
I wouldn't make a transfer.
I think that's what I've got to do. I mean, I will use the turning point tool to set up a team with Greenwood in, just to torture myself. Right? But yeah, I don't think I can do it. So I'm going to sit tight. Right, the Apprentice teams, as you mentioned. Natalie first, 95 points. Level with you. I mean, you've got to be delighted with that first return. I mean, she didn't have any direct coaching from you. She just put this team together with the tools that you showed, a scout members area and the ticker and so on. Obviously, she's been on Twitter as well. Do you spot anything in there which is Twitter influence? She
got the same points as me, with 8 out of 11 players different to me.
Yeah. So maybe the template. Bruno and Salah there, though, right?
I'm really, really pleased with her because, I mean, Gross was someone who she, backed, right from the start, looked at his underlying stats and he got the assist. Wilson scored, Calvert-Lewin. These are good players who she identified that no one's really considering. So, yeah, I'm really pleased with her start.
All the
I look
front
at her
three
team and
returned.
think it's good. I think it's a good team.
Yeah, so it's Martinez, Cancelo, Ayling and Trent, Bruno, Rafinha, Salah and Gross, Adams, Calvert-Lewin and Wilson. Look how many players returned. She only had 2 players or 3 players who didn't return. Yeah.
it's great, right? Adams is the only one there that I'm a bit like, oh, please get rid of him at some point. But other than him, I'm very happy.
I tell you what, and Henry came in with this. He came in with 97. These two are going to think it's easy, aren't they? They must be sitting home going, what's all the fuss about?
I can't believe Henry came with a 97. His team was awful the first one he submitted.
Well, I had that YouTube session where I cheated.
You gave him a load of coaching, didn't you? So no wonder he's turned it around.
I did not. Just in case you're wondering what we're talking about, we've got two new FPL players. Az has got Natalie. I've got Henry. They're 2 very different people. One, Henry has some background in football, has played Football Manager a lot. So he's got some football knowledge. Natalie hasn't got that football knowledge, but her partner does play FPL, so there's a bit leaking through there. But Natalie has been fast-tracked on all the tools, and Henry has had no help whatsoever from that, although I have cheated a bit, and I did tell him that Dallas played in defence last season. And I regret that, and I think there should be some kind of punishment. So maybe you can give Natalie one direct piece of advice to compensate for that.
I'm not giving her any advice.
I knew you'd say that. I was hoping you would say, yes, I will. And then that's going to...
You need to sell Che Adams, Nat. He's rubbish.
And then he gets
bangs
the hat-trick
next game. Yeah, no chance. No chance.
But I mean, we've got to talk to them before the weekend because presumably they're thinking about their transfers now. Henry's team, 97. Sanchez, Trent, Tsimikas, White, Rafinha, Salah, Bruno, Son, Antonio, Pukki, and Tony. He had Ayling on the bench. So I wonder what Henry's thinking about. I'm going to get in touch with him after the show and talk about what he's doing this week, what he thinks. I can't give him any guidance on the transfer, of course. What are you going to do with Natalie in terms of guidance? Are you going to point her at any new tools in particular or Twitter? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'll just have a bit of a check-in with her, I think, and just see, what she's looking at. If she's been looking at any Game Week 1 stats, if there's any players that she's been considering, any transfers lined up. But I'm mostly just going to let her get on with it because it's a good start. I don't want to influence her, to be honest.
No, absolutely. And we'll check and we'll do another video with them in a couple of weeks to see how they're doing. I mean, at the moment, Henry's beating Az, but I won't dwell on that. Let's just look at that because this is the BlackBox League. So let's first of all look at the Apprentice League down the bottom there. There I am, top by 3 points ahead of Henry. Natalie in third on 95, Az on 95 as well. So jointly is 197 versus 190. So we're 7 points ahead at the moment. But we'll see how that goes on as the season goes on. BlackBox League, do you want to read out the leaders there as in the BlackBox League?
I do. We've got Ryan Quinn leading the way, 130 points. Vincent Rayner just off with 129. Austin Enigi with 128. They're the top 3. But we've got likes of Callan Fortune, Ben, Michael, 2 Michaels, Ivo, Frederick, people sort of, who are wanting to get ahead. But if you haven't joined the league yet, there's obviously still a chance to do so. The code is VJNG38. and try and get us into the top 5 of the overall leagues.
We are paying more attention to the Black Box League. We're in negotiations to get a trophy together and some goodies for the winner. And Az is going to buy dinner for the winner, of course, no matter where you live.
It's your turn this year.
Yes, absolutely. So what is left to consider before we go? I think that's more or less about it, other than the smash and likes thing situation, which we didn't do last week.
No, we didn't.
We have gone up to, let me just check, 16.8k subscribers. I bought a suit for the wedding because I tried my old suit on, and lo and behold, after lockdown, I had a little bit of trouble getting into the old suit. So I had to buy a new suit. And as I bought the suit, I thought, this is a bit of a waste of money because I only use it really for weddings and funerals. And apart from my own wedding, which is left to go, there's not much. And I'm probably going to have to buy another new suit for that. You know, £100 suit from Next isn't going to cut it. No, not married. No, for some reason, as the years have gone on, something's got in the way and we haven't got married. Nothing to do with me living down a shed talking about football most of the time. No, so I've got this suit. And as I bought this suit, it wasn't a big investment. But I thought to myself, well, I can always wear it for the 20k subscribers. And that's the point, right? We're going to be in suits for the 20k subscribers. So the sooner that happens...
Stick some RGBs on it.
Yeah, I'll have them all over it. And so we hope to be wearing our suits, you know, in a few months' time, hopefully. But sub to the channel and do us a favour with that and hit the likes, right, Az?
Well said, Mark. Normally it's me that takes the likes and subs, but I think you've done a great job. Yeah, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, why not? You might as well do it now. And yeah, make sure you like the video as well. How many watching? 1,714. Amazing.
Brilliant turnout.
So yeah, and again, thanks everyone for all the nice things you said about BlackBox at Fest. They really did mean a lot.
I was overwhelmed at the end. I was like tearing up, and you were too drunk to even really register at that point.
Oh, I'm suffering now. I mean, this cold is awful. It has genuinely got worse throughout the pod as well.
I don't understand. It's not like you've been burning the candle at both ends and getting really drunk or anything. That's, you know, unbelievable. No. Delia, send more cookies to cheer him up. Delia's cookies were a big surprise. Big shout out to her for that. And for, I mean, she's in the chat. I saw her tonight. We are not doing a Q&A this week, are we? Because I've got to get up early for the official pod. And look at Az. You don't need a reason why we're not doing a Q&A tonight.
Oh, dear.
But we will be back next week, and we'll endeavour to do a Q&A live with you then. But for now, it's a good night for me.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for watching.